Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. So today there is a piece of news that I am, to be honest with you, kind of celebrating, which is that Vice Media is weighing bankruptcy after laying off staff. I want to explain why I think this is a good thing. I want to explain why I think this sends the right signal, and above all, why I am happy at this news. Not only do I not care that Vice may be going bankrupt, but I am happy that they are going bankrupt. This dates back, the story really starts kind of 5 years ago, back when I made this video where I made a mistake. This video was on Apple suing an independent repair technician named Henrik Husby. He was dealing with refurbished screens. This is a very common thing that we do in the repair industry. If you have an iPhone screen, 99% of the time when it breaks, the only thing that breaks is the front glass that you touch, not the part under it that makes the picture. So you'll often send these screens off to a refurbisher who will put a new glass on it. This is beneficial for several reasons. A, you're not wasting a good LCD, but more importantly, you can now tell the customer you are giving them back a screen that has the original LCD with the original picture quality rather than a knockoff. And this is a very common thing to do. Apple had sued him saying that there were Apple logos on these parts, and obviously they're going to have Apple logos on them. This is kind of similar to if you have a Ford F-150 and you replace the brakes on it, and then Ford sues you saying you still have the Ford logo on it, but you use different calipers or different brand brake pads or whatever. It just seemed completely ridiculous to all of us. Now, several months later, we were able to get access to all of the court documents. And once I got access to all the court documents, because I was asked to testify as an expert witness, I learned that what was made available publicly and what the actual case was about were two totally separate things. This gentleman did send cracked screens to a company in China that was a refurbisher, but he was selling those screens to a refurbisher, not having them actually do the refurbishing for him. He sold screens to a refurbisher and then, in a separate transaction, purchased screens from a vendor called Jack Telecom. When he purchased those screens from Jack Telecom, he was buying screens that had fake Apple logos printed on them by Jack Telecom, because Jack Telecom had went from being an upstanding supplier to your standard counterfeiting piece of shit, which is not something that I am for. I am not for people putting fake logos on parts that are not in any way, shape, or form manufactured to the same specifications as the OEM part. That's wrong. So once I got all this information, I reached out to the people who were covering this advice. And I had a journalist who was very, very happy and excited to take all of my documents in and to listen to what I had to say. So I provided him with all the court documents. I went over why it is all of us were wrong in how we were reporting this case, and I waited a month. I heard nothing from this person. I waited 2 months, nothing. I finally came out with this video. I was wrong about this case. Let's go over the new information. I did numerous follow-up videos. I did a live stream of it on my other channel. I did a video on ideological oversimplifications in this case. I went over it time and time again because I don't like the fact that most mainstream news outlets, when they get something wrong, they post the incorrect information on page 1, but then they post a correction on page 48 in size 8 font. It's disgusting, and you know what they're doing. They're trying to avoid responsibility for something that they're ashamed of. I was trying to do the opposite. I got something wrong. I edited the title of my original video, and I produced not one, not two, but 3 separate videos going over how and why I was wrong. I produced 3 separate videos going over exactly how we were wrong. To this day, 4 years later, Vice never posted a correction to their original article, even though I know they have the proper information because I gave it to them. If Vice is going to get something that wrong within my own industry, when they have all the information necessary because I personally provided it to them and I know they read it, how much are they getting wrong in other sectors of the industry? But above all, it speaks to a problem that we have in modern times, which is a problem that I went over in detail in this video, how journalists lose the trust of their readers. And I'd like to play just a few short clips from this video because I believe it is 100% relevant to what has been happening over the past 4 years. You just tell me if what I was talking about in 2019 rings just a little bit true today. Almost a month later, silence. And as you can see, there has been no follow-up to that story from Vice. And this is part of the problem here. So new information came to light that makes this story something that you would view in a different light because you have new factual information. But that new factual information does not necessarily suit the narrative of the individuals that were behind the story. So we're not going to lie to you and tell you something's not true. We're just not going to present you those new facts. We're not going to shed a light on it. We're not going to let you know. We're going to make that executive decision that if you want that information, you can kind of dig for it yourself, but we're not going to help you get to it. And this is part of the problem when it comes to mainstream media, even now, not even mainstream media, but the new wave of media, where people are making this not just editorial decisions on how to write an article, but they're making editorial decisions on what information you should be presented and what information you shouldn't be presented. They're not lying to you. They're just not covering something. And the problem here is that this is then going to create distrust amongst the individuals that follow you. But above all, once you actually start saying things that are true, that are factually correct, people are not going to believe you. And I am wondering, and there are so many people that wonder, how is it that these large journalistic institutions don't have trust? Why are people calling them fake news? Why are people not willing to accept facts that are objectively true, that can be fact-checked to be true when it's coming from a specific outlet? And one of those reasons is because you broke their trust. You broke their trust, and there is a consequence to that. So I was actually talking with Jessa about this the other day, and we had a seasoned debate about it, as we often do. So one of the things that she said is, I'm not sure I'd publish a story that says third-party repair shops have no idea what they're getting from China, and China habitually copies and lies. That is the story. Fuck repair. These guys have no idea how to do QC or evaluate a screen. They are monkeys plugging in random stuff from China. And that it doesn't matter how he says it. A story like that is something, if you want it, you could dig it up yourself. If Jason shines a light on it, the story becomes fuck repair, they're all idiots with shit parts. And she was arguing in defense of Jason not publishing this updated information on the story that he's been covering for several years. And I was arguing against not publishing that information. Now, I disagree with her. I think that, A, that's not what the narrative has to be. Many of the repair shops that are mentioned here have glowing 5-star reviews going back 10 years. Henrik was actually purchasing the highest tier quality of screen for his customer, and he was purchasing from a company that typically sells good stuff. I think the narrative there would be, it really sucks that we can't get original parts from the manufacturer because they make it that hard, so this is why we have to dumpster dive and try to find the best things that we can. Sometimes we may fail, and by the way, the factories in China should stop putting fake logos on things and just covering them over. That's wrong. I think the lesson to be learned from that is that we all can't just say we want to get parts at good price that are good quality with a good return policy, but we need to add a bullet point to that list, which is, by the way, if you send us stuff with a fake, with an original logo, that's fine if it came from the original factory, but if you added your own fake logo on top of it, we are not accepting that anymore. No. And I thought that was the story that should be, the narrative that could be achieved from it. But B, and this I believe is the much more important point, who the fuck am I to decide what information to publish or not publish based on how I think you may interpret it? It's not my job to publish or not publish or shine a light on information simply because you may think differently of the story. That's not on me. That's not my job. My job as a journalist is to give you the information. You think what you will of the information. Again, it's like when people talk about Fox. Like, you got the part that actually gets information, and then you have the nighttime TV shows that whatever the fuck they do with the information, that's on them. It's or with many news networks. You have your hard journalism, your hard reporting, and then you have your opinion pieces and that and the other. You can inject your opinion, that's fine, have your opinion pieces, but don't not report relevant news because you think it may change the narrative. And the thing is, there's only so many times you can do that. So let's say that you do that, and you actually do get ahead. People don't realize that you skipped over a fact that may have made your side look a little bad in the moment. When they find out that you did that, do you think you're going to have their trust again? Do you think you're going to be able to convince people that are on the other side of the fence that maybe you have a point? Do you think that they're going to listen? Because here's the thing that you may notice with modern politics. We're not talking about politics. We're not talking about religion. We're not talking about public schools. We're not talking about healthcare. We're not talking about immigration. We're not talking about race issues, police, any of that stuff. We're talking about iPhone screens. Even when it comes to something as inconsequential as iPhone screens, you have individuals who are more than happy to put the spotlight on the facts over there that are totally unwilling to put the light on facts over there, where people who are figureheads of this movement that I like, that I consider my best friend like Jessa, who I talk to every day, are even saying, there's no reason to put the light on the facts over there. And the issue that I have with that is that if you don't put the light on the facts over there, people who actually are curious, who want to dig a little bit, they're going to find those facts over there. And they're going to and whoever's willing to present them with those facts over there, they're going to trust. They're not going to trust the mainstream credible person who gets the story right 90% of the time because they hid the ball that 10% of the time. So then they're going to start listening to the people who got it right that 10% of the time because they showed them the facts that nobody else is willing to show them. But you know what the problem is with the people who are willing to show those facts? They get the other 90% wrong. But it's too late now because you lost their trust. So now the people who are willing to who pointed out those facts that everybody else was ignoring.
Does this not sound like where we are in 2023? Seriously, you can have a news outlet that gets things right 90% of the time,
But because they want to push a particular narrative, they don't lie. They just pretend that this 10% over there didn't actually exist, and they avoid reporting it, even when somebody who's an expert in the industry shows them documents with demonstrating why that part is really important. You lose their trust. So then people move over to other news outlets that were actually open to showing them that 10%. So now what happens? That group that showed the general population that 10% that the mainstream media was not showing them now have earned their trust because they said, look at what they were hiding all along. We showed you that for real. Now they have a license to get the other 90% wrong for the next 5 or 10 years because you lied. I don't care if media companies like this go bankrupt. They should go bankrupt. If anybody has a justifiable reason to lie to make Apple look worse than they are, it is me. In spite of that, I made not 1, not 2, but 3 and probably now 4 videos going over why Apple actually had a reason to be angry in this particular case. It doesn't mean I love their repair programs. It doesn't mean I love their policies. It doesn't mean I love how they treat their customers. But if I am willing to abdicate my dignity and self-respect and reputation to push a narrative, then I don't deserve to win. That's just the basics of how this works, and that's how the media should see it. Even if you are a biased individual, even if you are somebody who believes in a particular narrative, it doesn't mean that you ignore the facts to push that particular narrative, which is what they did. I don't care if they fail. The same way that I don't care if Fox gets hit with $700 million because they chose to publish bullshit. If you do this bullshit where you are either lying by omission or outright lying, I don't care if you fail. I think that you should fail. And this is completely separate from my personal dealings with Vice. They sent me a contract because they wanted to do a TV show with me. When you look at the amount of episodes that they wanted me to produce, I probably would have been making somewhere around $30,000 a year off of it. They had the ability to veto me uploading stuff to my own personal channel. They had the right over my personal brand and name if I were to sell merchandise and shit like that. I looked at this contract and just absolutely laughed at it and gave them the middle finger in the thumbnail for very, very obvious reasons if you look through the contract. In my opinion, they're a crappy company. They've always been a crappy company. They were a crappy news network. They were always a crappy news network, and I don't care if they fail. And frankly, I think that everybody should be invested in seeing outlets that take part in this type of garbage fail. As I said, it has been 4 years since this event. None of those articles have been updated with any of the documents that I made available. Any of the documents that I showed you in this particular video, you're not going to find those on Vice. You're going to find those on a channel known for random man yells into camera. I should not have higher journalistic integrity than a professional news outlet because A, that's fucking ridiculous on its face, and B, I'm a highly biased individual that admittedly myself is pushing a narrative. I want people to be able to fix their own stuff. I want you to own shit, not subscribe to things in perpetuity. I want people to have control over what they own. I recognize that I have a bias towards autonomy, sovereignty, and freedom in that way, and I understand that that affects the way that I discuss things. This is an opinion channel, but even as an opinion channel, even as a man with cat yells at camera channel, we have some basic standards of integrity. And if I get something wrong as serious as this, I am going to tell you it the second that I get the court documents. And the fact that this still has not been corrected by this news agency 4 years later, dude, again, I don't care if you go bankrupt. I don't care if you lose all your money. I don't care if you're never able to report anything again. Hopefully the resources that are no longer in your pocket go to the pockets of people that actually are honest with their audiences. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think that I'm going a little too far here? Do you think it's wrong that I make claims that once a mainstream media outlet lies, that it then gives license to independents to lie about everything else because they can point out the one thing they got right? Or do you think that that's actually how things have worked out over the past 4 years? Because when I look at how 2020 went or anything over the past 3 or 4 years, it really seems to be the case that the outlets that were batshit insane, that just so happened to point out one thing that everybody else was ignoring, started to get a lot of credibility that allowed them to lie and bullshit and make up everything else. But people believed them because the mainstream media outlets were willing to hide shit to push a narrative. I strongly believe that it is not my place to hide information from you because I want to shape a narrative. I should be able to present every single piece of information, 100% of it, and then say, here's why I agree with this. Here's why I'm biased in this way. Here's this information, and this may actually go against my case, but here's why I think this still bolsters a better case. It's your job to choose which narrative you want to agree with. It's your job to choose whether to subscribe to a narrative at all. It's not my job to make that decision for you. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I will include links to this entire thing down below so that you can see me say something that was wrong, me explain why I was wrong, and me explain why I think that news outlets should be held accountable for it so that you can follow the entire story as it unfolded in real time and tell me, do you think I'm being unreasonable here or do you think it's them? That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.